Welcome to the 700 Club. Food prices are now up 6.4%. Gas prices are up 58%. And we all better get used to it. Record inflation is at a 39-year high.
Well, some are blaming the pandemic for the soaring inflation. Others are pointing the finger at the president. Dale Hurd reports on the economic crisis that's forcing the Federal Reserve to take action.
Inflation is roaring higher. A new poll shows most Americans blame Joe Biden for it. And this could just derail his massive social spending plan, known as Build Back Better. A poll by Fox Business shows most voters think Biden is making inflation worse. 2/3 say inflation has caused them financial hardship. The Producer Price Index, a key indicator of inflation, is nearing double digits.
9.6% Producer Price Index is astounding. And the vast majority of it is not temporary. It is here to stay.
Consumer price inflation is currently at a 39-year high, rising nearly 7% over the past year. Food prices up 6.4%. Gas prices are up 58%. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell announced Wednesday the Fed is changing to a course that would likely mean higher interest rates in the first half of next year. Powell blamed the inflation on the COVID pandemic.
While the drivers of higher inflation have been predominantly connected to the dislocations caused by the pandemic, price increases have now spread to a broader range of goods and services.
But economist Dan Celia says the cause is much simpler.
We've had money too cheap, too fast, too long, and it continues to devalue the dollar.
Polling also shows a majority of voters believe Biden's proposed social spending plan, known as Build Back Better, would push inflation even higher and hurt the economy. The White House hoped to pass the $2 trillion package by Christmas, but now it looks likely delayed until next year. A big reason is the opposition from Democratic Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who believe the big spending bill will further damage the economy. Biden and Manchin had a rocky meeting at the White House Wednesday.
It's a question of how much their own party is going to end up, being the roadblock to it. And thank goodness we've got a couple moderate Democrats left, because if it weren't for Manchin and Sinema, this would already be a done deal.
And Celia believes inflation is going even higher than November's 9.6% on the Producer Price Index.
I would suspect by the end of December, and we get that number in January, it's probably going to be double digits.
Federal Reserve officials expect to raise short-term interest rates by 1/4 point at least 3 times next year to help rein in inflation. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, if you haven't taken advantage of the low interest rates on mortgages, if you haven't done it, you might want to get that taken care of. Go look at your mortgage interest rate. I'm hearing you can get 3% in the market today. At the end of next year, if you have 3/4 point hikes, well, you're not going to get that anymore. It's going to be 3.75, maybe even 4. So take advantage of the low rates while you can and lock them in for a long period of time. Jerome Powell is responding to inflation, and what he's seeing is a wage inflation. And what's happened is the pandemic has led a lot of people to say, well, I don't want to be part of the labor force anymore. And we're seeing it all over the country with the help wanted signs and various job openings that are going unfilled for months after month after month. And so employers have to pay more wages. That, in turn, is going to drive an inflationary spiral. Then you see all the government incentives where the government is literally giving away money to people, and that is inflationary. And whenever you have an oversupply of money chasing a limited supply of goods, the price of those goods is going to go up. Now, is the pandemic part of it? Yeah, you can't produce more goods because you have some supply chain issues. And at the beginning of the pandemic, demand went all the way down to 0 for some products. And so the manufacturers stopped producing them. In order to ramp back up into production, now that the economy is back, they're being a little slow. But the old adage that high prices are always the cure for high prices and low prices are always the cure for low prices, you just have to wait it out, that's not really going to apply here because of that wage inflation. So the Fed has to act. They're going to reduce the supply of money. That's the biggest thing they have to do. They're going to increase interest rates. And when they do that, you and I as taxpayers are going to pay a much higher bill for the now $29 trillion deficit. That means the federal government is going to be borrowing money at a higher rate. So should the federal government do even more borrowing in order to do the Build Back Better? I would say no. That's going to be inflationary. You're going to increase the amount of money circulating in the economy. You're going to increase the amount of federal debt and then the amount of money that the federal government pays in interest every year. So it's that's a short economics lesson, but this is a bad bill, and we're going to see inflation. It's going to be here for some time. In other news, a double disaster. Hospitals are expecting a surge of COVID cases due to both Omicron and Delta variants. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington.
That's right, Gordon. Omicron cases are doubling every 2 days and have spread to at least 36 states. Health officials say the current boosters, though, are effective against Omicron. And while this variant may be more transmissible, it's not as severe. Researchers also say Omicron has different symptoms than previous variants, like having a scratchy throat rather than a sore throat.
Every healthcare system is planning and bracing for the coming winter months that are likely going to be pretty bad.
Omicron now accounting for 3% of coronavirus cases in America and as much as 13% in New York, New Jersey, and Washington state. This comes as COVID cases are rising nationwide as the Delta surge continues, up 40% over the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the country observed another sad milestone in the pandemic this week, now passing 800,000 deaths. Well, as people pick up the pieces left by the tornado outbreak in the Midwest, loved ones continue searching for more than 100 people still missing. President Biden visited the hardest hit areas of Kentucky yesterday, pledging the federal government will pay 100% of all emergency work for the next 30 days. CBN's Brody Carter reports on how thousands of volunteers are doing their part to help.
6 days since the storm, and focus is shifting from the damage left behind to the men and women stepping up to help from all over, cooking free meals, picking up debris, or helping search for those still missing.
And something that feels pretty therapeutic. We're actually hauling some of this debris out of town. Hauling a little bit of that chaos and devastation and death out of town.
Where the shock of losing a home and a business, the grief of losing someone, it's happening right before the holidays, I said, and we're going to make sure that you have all the help you need, including the kind of mental help that's needed to help people through difficult times.
Wednesday, President Biden made stops in the hardest hit areas of Kentucky, promising to uphold his emergency declaration. Mr. Biden walked the streets of Mayfield, Princeton, and Dawson Springs, talking with survivors and mourning with those who've lost everything.
CBN's Operation Blessing delivering relief supplies to First Baptist Church in Dawson Springs, Kentucky.
We were providing some food items, comfort items for warmth. We're providing water. We're providing Home Depot buckets so that they can begin the process of restoring their lives to some sort of normalcy.
Even in the darkest of times, people are finding a guiding light. This cross at Mayfield's First Baptist Church left standing, a symbol of hope during life's darkest storms. And consider this man's peace and worship after losing everything.
I don't want to face this storm or any other without walking with Christ. And so in those trying times and even in the good times, that's where I want to be found.
Jordan and his family survived by taking shelter in his basement with only a mattress for protection. His praise and thanksgiving is bringing hope to those here and beyond.
I play often. Music is important to me, specifically Christian music. My faith is very important to me. I played the song for me, just to get a quiet moment by myself. But I think I guess it's brought some peace and comfort to a lot of folks that are facing some really difficult situations right now.
I remember that old Bill and Gloria Gaither classic from church way back when, Gordon. It's good to see and really encouraging how people are responding to this tragedy, both the victims and those coming to help with stories of hope, resilience, and faith, and help like those at Operation Blessing.
Yes, there is something about that name. Anthony Lloyd is the director of U.S. Disaster Relief for Operation Blessing. He joins us now from Dawson Springs, Kentucky. So, Anthony, what are the immediate needs Operation Blessing is helping with right now?
Good morning, Gordon. Yes, we're here in Dawson Springs, and those needs are still before the citizens that were impacted by the storm, and they include food, tarps and things to just help them get on the path to recovery. So there's still many that are in that part of the response.
It may be early to talk about long-term rebuilding, but what will Operation Blessing be doing to help with the long-term rebuild?
Well, Gordon, we're here in the midst of a neighborhood that, 6 short days ago was operating normally. Now we're at a site of a woman who lost her home. It's completely gone. And so that process takes months, and in the midst of all the strain on the economy, it's going to take even longer. So this woman, in the homes that are damaged, some of them are completely missing. And so, some of them just need some shingles, some of them need, maybe less repairs. And so Operation Blessing's intent is to partner with groups and to send our volunteers and just work alongside on these longer term projects to get some folks build into their hearts the hope of recovery by getting them back in their homes. But there's a lot of work that has to be done, and it's going to take a while.
Let's talk about the volunteers. What kind of local turnout have you had to help with the recovery effort?
Well, we've seen, and there's a lot of people coming from the churches nearby, and of course, the search and rescue personnel, first responders. They continue to turn out to help those that are still recovering. They're just still in shock. When we spoke with the owner of this home, she had her family around her, and they were looking for items. She's a pet owner. She had animals that were near and dear to her, and they found one of them nearby. So people are providing emotional, they're providing spiritual care, and so we're going to partner with those folks and do that as well.
All right, Anthony, thanks for being with us, and thanks for all the work you're doing out in Dawson's Creek. So Dawson Springs, if you want to be a part of this, if you want to be a part of the relief effort, there's a couple different ways you can do it. One, you can donate. You can send money to help those in need. You can call us, 1-800-700-7000. You can also write to us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put Operation Blessing Disaster Relief in the memo line, and your fund will go to help those who are victims of disaster. There's also a way you can give by text, OBDR, to 71777. Or you can go to cbn.com. And on the Operation Blessing, this is ob.org. If you want to volunteer, you can find ways that you can volunteer where you can personally be of help. However we do it, let's all get together and realize this is a big task, and we all need to come together to help those who are in need. And this isn't some short-term thing that in a couple of weeks it's going to go away. We're looking at months of recovery for the people impacted by these horrible tornadoes. So let's do our part. 1-800-700-7000.